Hello, you're listening to the Midweek conversation between Teak Hamilton and Jerry Hendricks. We're with First Baptist Sweetwater, where we strive to be the first responders of God's love. We are glad that you joined us today and glad to have this time to visit with you, Teak. As always, we meet here once a week. For our little convo, and there's been a lot going on since we met last.
There has been.
It sure seems like it, but I think that's springtime calendar for us.
Yeah, and I think it's, after a year of COVID, it just, even a little bit of stuff seems like a lot more than usual.
I suppose that's true.
So that's nice. That's good.
I don't know that in my ministry career, I never noticed how busy the month of May was for a church.
Right. Yeah.
And did I just miss that until I came here?
I don't know. Because we add in a children's musical, which adds to the schedule. But like we were talking about even today, all 5 Sundays are Sundays, or something's going on, or it's you can expect low attendance because there's a Memorial Day weekend in there and things like that, Mother's Day, an up day, and Senior Sunday is the first one. So it really is a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I guess I started noticing it because I keep the attendance spreadsheets from year to year, and on the whole, that's our highest monthly average attendance, I believe.
Yeah,
and, so
makes sense. I mean, you got 3 really good Sundays in there that are high attendance Sundays.
Yeah. So looking forward to that. We still have another busy week before we even get to May, but we started a series Sunday called Woven. It's on the church. And the other thing on calendaring is the calendar following Easter each year is going to vary because the date for Easter moves around. But this year seems to have fallen in a really good place as far as sequencing our messaging. And so we'll be taking this series all the way up till the Sunday that the kids sing. And I think it'll be really fun. Sunday, we had a packed day and really just had the opportunity to introduce the series and what we'll be talking about. 3 of the 4 passages all come from Acts chapter 4. And then on that last one, it will be Acts chapter 8 with Philip and the Ethiopian.
Makes sense. Right after Easter, we talk about the church.
Yeah, and so it is interesting. I did more extensive work this year on looking at how the different years fall, because this is on a 3-year rotation.
Right.
And generally, I will lean into talking about the church and using the Acts passages. You've intrigued me with what you're doing with the youth as far as focusing on appearances.
The individual appearances. It's been fun. Last week was our first one with Mary Magdalene. Tomorrow night we talk about the disciples on the road to Emmaus and talked about why all these people didn't recognize Jesus.
Yeah.
What was different, or was it caused, or was it emotional? What is going on there?
Yeah.
So
I've kind of put that on in my folder for next year, maybe to at least explore some of those ideas. I've not always, since I've been here, done the Acts passages, but I do tend to like being able to focus on the church because that's one time a year where you can really do that, and it follows a good rhythm with the Christian calendar. So we'll be doing that. The focus in the next 2 weeks is Peter and John and their preaching. Gets them into a bit of trouble, and the gospel is spreading exponentially.
I mean, according to Acts, if your preaching doesn't get you in a little bit of trouble, you're probably not preaching, right?
Sure, yeah, man, that makes great sense. Again, I'm a rookie pastor here, and this whole preaching thing is a little bit new to me, or still feels new. So
if you're just getting the people saying, you are the next Billy Graham, then there's a problem, right?
Yeah, there's a problem, yeah, right. So
I'll be looking for controversial stuff for the next couple weeks. I'm excited.
Because
that's what our world needs, is more controversy right now. I mean, that would be really great.
We're in a bit of a calm state. I'd hate to get things to going sideways. We keep talking about, I guess a part of the conversation since we've started regathering and things began to look more normal. We consistently see 0 cases of COVID
Right.
in our county. And I just got a phone call from the health department. I'm scheduled for my second shot on Thursday.
Yay! So that means Friday, your day off, is the day you're.
I'm going to be well by Sunday.
we didn't time this right. Like everybody else, do it on a Monday. That way you're sick on a Tuesday, or do it on a Sunday so you're sick on a Monday. Like that would be the ideal.
We had varied results in our house with that. Mm-hmm. Sharon, it hit her pretty hard, but it hit her in the evening on that second shot. James was a little lethargic, but didn't seem to affect him much. And I don't think Sarah, it affected her much either.
Yeah,
so
Stacy just had a sore arm.
Yeah.
So and that was with both of them.
But as things, Sunday was one of those cases where with baptism and a lot of friends of the May family there to support them and love, share love with them, that we had a good number of guests here, but we also had others who were returning for the first time post-COVID. And whatever this thing starts to look like in the future, it's starting to shape up to be something that's very exciting.
Right. Yeah, most definitely.
Well, for one, I don't think we've mentioned this in here, but one of there's several things have shifted or changed or been added or subtracted during the COVID season. And one of the things that I started doing 2 months ago was meeting with a creative team once a month to talk about our series. And just to give you an example, the set up in the foyer with a historical emphasis was a part of that creative process, as well as the decorations on the table at the front of the church. And that's very interesting. I'm not sure if you only watched online if you could see that, but
no, they had it framed where you could see the table at times. Yeah.
So it's a very intriguing setting as we talk about weaving our history together, because we will celebrate 140 years of ministry on December the 11th. So that's something that we're looking forward to, and there's some excitement just thinking through different ways that we can communicate that, some reflective thought. We've asked Glenn Harrison who teaches our membership class, and in that membership class presents a part of our history, and apparently he had delved into this pretty good when he was getting started on all this.
Well, we actually had somebody in the church. They were still here when I got here, but I think they've both passed away since then, that actually wrote a little book called The First 100 Years, or 100 Years History of First Baptist Sweetwater. And we had a lot of those copies around, and so it's nice to have those to kind of help with that. And I know he used that for a lot of it, and great pictures in there. So it's been good.
Well, this coming Sunday, he'll be sharing a few stories. We jumped ahead to the building progression because we had highlighted those buildings and the architecture in the foyer in a museum type setting. And so I asked him to do that and to start, but then next week he'll start with some of the stories, some of the fun stories about what the community was like and all back.
Well, I found some great pictures that I gave him of former deacon meetings and stuff like that. Also some where we were out at Looters. The deacons were out there, and in their shorts and their socks with the two stripes up to here. So I got some great pictures. Hopefully people will be there to see their 1980s and 90s face.
Well, you've got me intrigued. I have seen one of those pictures, but I don't think it was the deacons.
Well, that's true. That was a good picture.
It was a great picture. But we're looking forward to that time, and there's a lot of things that we can think of to do in preparation for that, and we look forward to getting into that and bringing all of us kind of up to speed on who we are as a church through the process of understanding the early church.
I like it.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And so this Sunday, last Sunday we just started kind of noticing through the scripture story how the church has begun to come together with one mind and one heart, and that was really demonstrated through the way that they took care of those who were around them. And that's there's so many, a lot of times when you take on a text, you're thinking there is so many things you could say here. That one Sunday was pared down tremendously due to everything else that we had as a part of our worship. But also just there's so much to talk about there and what it means for us as people and as a church to be generous with one another and helping one another. And so hopefully, and I had several conversations afterward with people who shared some thoughts in regard to that text, and it's really healthy, I feel like, when the church does that, where we're not having to tell them what a passage means, but they're starting to understand it for themselves. They've done some previous learning, and so that was a positive thing from Sunday. This Sunday, it turns to where we're hearing some of the messages and some of the thoughts of Peter and John as they begin to see things come together in some ways and then unravel in other ways.
Right.
I believe this Sunday it's the healing of the lame beggar, which starts to, it helps us to capture some of the activities, what was going on with the disciples' ministry after the resurrection of Jesus. I think that's meaningful because they were set up to understand that they would not only do the things that Jesus had done, but they would do greater things.
Right.
And you start to see that come into play in their life and ministry. And then they have to give a defense for it.
Right. Is this silver and gold? I have none.
Right.
And then, that's a good one.
And so they'll spend some time on that third week of this series talking in front of the Sanhedrin and going through that process. So a lot of good stuff as we begin to transition, I think, in the storyline from the ministry of Jesus being the central character along with his disciples, to a post-resurrection experience and seeing new characters emerge. I think one of the things that struck me about the story of Philip and the Ethiopian was you see new characters emerge with the same message. Right. And so a good progression throughout those passages. And so be sure and spend some time reading, not just in Acts chapter 4, but 5 through 8, 5 through 7, because prior to that, we are introduced to Stephen.
Right, because a lot of this, and this is what I'm learning in the study we're doing with youth, we read it very flat. But this is the church, this is the followers of Jesus working out what this Christianity thing would look like over the next thousands of years. But we think it was nice and smooth. It wasn't. No. I mean, why was Mary crying at the tomb? Well, because she thought she lost Jesus, and she still didn't understand why the body was missing. Like, resurrection wasn't in the mind. Neither. It wasn't there for Peter and John and all those. They didn't get it, and they're having to work it out. I mean, we read it now, and we're like, oh, yeah, the tomb is empty. And they were like, oh, no, the tomb is empty.
Yeah.
And you hear that when you read the other gospel authors where they're talking about, seal the tomb because someone might try to steal the body and they'll try and pull another prank on us and all that. And you're like, there was some real heightened emotions and tense situations going on there.
Yeah, and from those moments to where we will finish this series, it's a fast-paced, fast action type story. And, once we're introduced to him, I guess in chapter 9, then things begin to take on a different tone because he's the central character as far as the preaching and the relationships as he began to work with churches. But definitely this first part, much like our season, is fast-paced, a lot of things going on, a lot of action, and there's besides the details that we'll be sharing on Sunday, and we're hopeful that people will be reading in between the lines, in between the messages, and capturing this for themselves. Just to get a grasp of that early church experience.
And then Pentecost will be here before you know it.
When is Pentecost?
23rd.
That's I knew T-Card.
That's another one of those moments where, they don't know how to interpret Holy Spirit coming down and just like Jesus said, we're going to send Holy Spirit. It happens and they're like, oh, they're obviously drunk.
Yeah.
And then the only rebuttal they can come up with is, it's 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. or whatever, we wouldn't be drunk yet. And you're like, was that really the best defense right there? But, I mean, they're still working it out. They're having to think on the fly, and they're having to really figure out what's going on. And, man.
Well, and thinking and talking about how our experiences are woven together, I think one of the things that you and I enjoy is experiencing through the today's church some rituals or some traditions that help us to, I guess, deepen our understanding of those experiences. And if nothing else, it becomes just like Advent and Lent, where you recognize a rhythm and you recognize certain points, and when you recognize those or take a look at them each from year to year, I think different things show up to you as you're learning and understanding it. And so we are talking about in our creative meeting what that Sunday looks like. Typically, that Pentecost Sunday, we're getting way ahead here, but it involves the color red.
Just getting ahead maybe with right now, but like we need to be thinking about it right now.
Right. Yes, and we are. So, and I think we even brought it up last week, I think.
Probably because it was going through my head. I met with my Sunday morning class leadership team Sunday night, and we talked about what does that day look like in class, and brainstormed, did a bunch of ideas and stuff, and so I'm excited about where we're going with that.
Cool. Well, it's fun being able to talk to you today about some of these things coming up. Both of us are dressed warm today.
Yep, because it's only going to get colder.
We're having it was cold, I forget when it started getting cold, Sunday, but it's going to be a chilly week here in April as we kind of enter this phase of spring, and then maybe we'll start looking more like summer.
Yeah, I can't wait for those 113 degree days. I'm looking forward to those.
I love the summertime. All right, thanks for joining us on this podcast. We look forward to seeing you live or online this Sunday.
See you then.